Welcome back. This is our last visit to Egypt. Along with puzzle density and difficulty, it looks like the last 10 stars will be weighted towards the end of the game. Looks like this time around will be quite a connector-heavy series of puzzles. Okay, let's do one more of these. Finished!
Before the age of chaos, there were other gods, old gods. But for all their power, they could not save their world. Thus I was made, and I shall preserve this world forever, for you and your generations. That is my purpose.
It's quite incredible that for a being so rooted in Christianity, Elohim is perfectly happy with a polytheistic view when taking into account the past. I like his degree of self-awareness, and he certainly isn't one note. He's got at least a couple of notes in there. Once more we are faced with a room that gives the impression of being open. We are taunted by mirages in the distance. Two-dimensional scenery in an absence of space. Barakiel, one of the blessed messengers, who we know acted upon those words, and was a staggering amount of help. I wonder if he knew that if his assistance would be relegated to a simple message at the end of a puzzle already completed, he wouldn't have taken it up. Maybe that should weigh in on whatever decisions we make in the future. I'll just give you a chance to wrap your head around what's happening here. So there's a lot at this end with these parallel lasers, and we've somehow got to leverage the other side of this room to get past these two. So the blue doesn't take much effort, but then there's no way we're going to get past it for this red one. The title of the room is Cat's Cradle, and it's really apt. We have to untangle these lasers over here and approach it from another angle. To begin with, I just start trying things with no plan in mind. So, the story idea I had at the last episode, a bunch of people pointed out that it's basically the 2006 Adam Sandler film Click. I'd have liked to say that the writers probably wrote it with more gravitas than they imagined it would be portrayed by, but looking at them, they also wrote Bruce Almighty, that sort of thing, which I didn't think was that bad, but it certainly wasn't intended to be serious. I think overall I'm pleased with the revelation, because it means that interesting thoughts are being put into a comedy film, and I think every genre should have interesting thoughts, regardless of what they are and how they're used. The worst thing something can be is bland. Another thing indicative of a cat's cradle, it has to become more complicated before it's resolved. It seems like these two connectors back here can stay where they are, and all I need to focus on now is getting the two that are blocking the sigil barrier out of the way. Of course, my first step towards all that will be to screw it all up, so let's look at the first text log. The logs in these bonus rooms really do seem to tie into the larger plot. I'm not sure how I feel about them being so out of the way, but this one in particular mostly serves just to confuse. It seems that whatever the virus was killed off the orangutans first. That was our initial glance at what this could do, a warning shot. It was probably an ancient virus, buried until now in high-latitude permafrost, set free by global warming. So there you go, revelatory. I don't think this text log is making any major comments on climate change. I think it's just trying to parody sensationalist media. As in, if something was found that would ultimately annihilate mankind, this is probably how most people would first hear about it. I'm just lucky here that I thought to put the red connector over on this side beforehand. I could have had it kicking around in the middle for a while before I worked out how to tie everything together. It now looks like if only that blue connector was pointing at the final receiver, I'd have this puzzle done. So that's basically what I do now. It takes me a couple goes to get it right. It occurs to me that I could probably have put this blue connector on top of the box, giving it enough height to go over the barrier and skipping out all of these steps. But then I'd have been defeated right at the very end, so I'm glad I didn't. The second log then, More Blake, is another really great example of the game talking about something that I was thinking about just moments before. It talks about the ancient poets animating all sensible objects with gods or geniuses, which basically means that sort of polytheistic practice of assigning natural deities to brooks and streams and household objects and things stuck in drawers, you know the drill. To drills even. Which sounds far more fun. Seems better not to put all your eggs in one basket. If I was religious, I'd probably go for that. Yeah, I repositioned myself into a failure state here. So it goes on to say, they started by placing individual objects under a deity, then expanded that to cities and countries. And then they basically said, well, this deity is stronger than that deity, so this country should overpower that country. And then it's got this lovely little phrase, thus began priesthood. Yeah, it was a good job I didn't entangle this box in my cradle. So then people ended up worshipping different deities. At length they pronounced that the gods had ordered such things. Thus men forgot that all deities reside in the human breast. And applying Occam's razor, it sounds like the most likely means by which all of the current religions came about. And like many other institutions, some evolved more naturally than others. I'm not going to fall into the trap of applying this to the game though. The game situation is different. Elohim is an actual AI with actual thoughts and processes who's actually speaking to us. From the control he has, it makes sense that he would consider himself lord of all that he surveys, but no one else has decided that for him. So I can't really argue. So I've liberated this connector, and I have determined that I definitely cannot weave my way around these two buzz chutes. Thankfully I solved the puzzle up on floor 1, so I at least have some vague idea of how to go about it. Although for some reason here I'm trying to see if I can shoot through the centre. It also looks like you might be able to sneak it around the end of these tunnels and where the buzzer stops moving. The hardest part seems to be finding the correct positioning when you can't make a full connection to the transmitter without that button being pressed down. In the end I did try and weave the laser between the buzzer and the end of the tunnel, though I'm not sure that was necessary. Here I just cut out a lot of me trying to circumvent this in increasingly uninteresting ways. You can see that even just placing it equidistantly is harder than it seems. I think the first time I tried it this way I didn't push it quite to the extremes and it subsequently didn't work out. And you can see the buzzer doesn't touch this laser on this side, so I think this might be intentional. It might have been set up in exactly this way. As always, as soon as this game requires me to pull off some specific execution on top of solving the puzzle, it loses me a bit. I should have found some fast forward music. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da. This beam looked completely fine before, but hey, that's why I stood on the switch for so long. The third puzzle is pretty much where lasers were heading from the start. Doors that you have to close after yourself if you want to open further ones that can only be accessed through windows. On top of that, each laser is opening multiple doors, so that's even more being added to the pot. So many windows in increasingly mysterious places. Makes you wonder for what you're going to use them all. Our first step, as always, is connector acquisition, though it only involves 2. Less than we're used to. It's basically one that moves around the perimeter, like a merry-go-round might, and the other that fulfills whatever it needs to fulfill at the time. Off to an extremely tricky start. This connector can only really open one barrier at a time. But by now that should have us seeking plan B. Try and get as far through the puzzle as you possibly can with the tools you've currently got, in the hopes that something will occur to you. Yeah, this puzzle comes with a commute. Let's look at the third text log. It's another email from George to the Institute for Applied Pneumatics mailing list. Ah, whoops, that door closes behind us. One at a time, remember? So this email feels like exactly the sort of thing that should be in a optional extra section. It's all about these user names we've been seeing. George explains that each iteration's been assigned its own unique name, drawn randomly from the database. At the moment, it's a database of online gaming handles. It's a bit odd, but as long as they're unique identifiers, it's fine. More than that is a luxury they can't afford. So yeah, one of the first things a player is likely to start questioning is answered however many hours in, and it's something that never really needed an in-game explanation, but here it is, and it fits perfectly. Here's my second connector, and it's one impossible to access looking barrier away from the sigil. But by using it right here, I can now steal back the jammer and take it with me. Did I say the previous barrier looked impossible to access? Yeah, where do you start? I'm clearly clueless. So in order to reach the penultimate barrier, we're going to need both connectors involved. And the penultimate barrier is blue, so they're both going to have to be blue, which is fine because there's only one red barrier, and we can use the jammer for that. That's me talking with some hindsight. It takes quite a bit of trial and error to get everything in position. In fact, trial and error doesn't really cut it, because if you start making wrong moves, you end up trapping yourselves between two closed barriers. So So let's start from the top and work our way there. So the justification behind the usernames is fairly wonderful. It still doesn't quite explain why so many of them were so apt to the characters involved. What's with all of the Archangels, eh? Was it a guild or something? A guild called the Archangels? Probably was, wasn't it? And I don't think I've ever used Cannibal Canine as anything other than an online alias. When I play a game, my avatar is usually Tomfoolery. That's F-U-L-R-Y. Because I like puns, and names that could be names but are actually puns. There we go, this odd window in the corner comes into its own. I never doubted, though I had all the reason in the world to do so. Actually, that's not fair. Though the receivers have been red herrings on several occasions, no other object has to my knowledge. Or I'm playing with that quick, excited movement I get when I know I'm close to the end. What the heck? Please excuse me while I reposition that a couple of inches. I still can't work out whether this is where the game really shines, or where it leaves a sour taste. The ability to put all the puzzle components wherever the heck you like in 3D space. Now that's something not worth passing up. On the whole, I'd say it's worth it, even when it leads to circumstances like this. It's pretty quick when you almost know what you're doing, though. Just time for one last sweep of the area. It's expansive enough. There might be secrets, messages, references to games I've never played and probably never will. I think that pyramid back there has some of its original surface still right at the top. What a crazy amount of detail. Now that I'm bothering to look at it, it really doesn't feel like an actual place. Remember, we saw that delta-looking area with all the little bridges. This is just a random mash of art assets. Yeah, there's definitely more surface on the top quarter of that pyramid. Very impressive. There was a fourth file on the terminal. It just showed a shot of the elevator panel with all 6 lights lit up. I suppose just in case you weren't sure what you were doing this for. Right, see you back at C3. Well, not before the penultimate Easter egg hunt. Have I used that word enough yet? Back in this sandy location, on these dunes, there's a monster whose head we saw strung up at some point earlier. And a message from someone who doesn't appreciate the philosophical themes in our puzzle robot game. Way over in this corner on a pile of rocks, there is a reference. If we continue way into the distance, marvelling at our sudden tightened grip while in first person, we can use it to break something. Smash. Where there's one reference, there's sure to be a whole room of them. University of Essential Arkansas? I don't know, guess them all, win a prize. Plank box, atomic box, radiating pulsar box, dirt box, utterly standard box. Not quite a box. Buddy box? Looks like a box that would be my buddy. And finally, meowing bomb box. Yeah? Most of the rest of this video is in C1. As the puzzles have become more involved, so too have the Easter eggs. Over here is that noise I was hearing and didn't actually manage to investigate last time.
Is written in the hidden words, all must must serve the words, for all the world was made of them, and they are within every stone and every cloud, and in our sigils their power is made manifest. The words are the process must continue. The goal is the end of the process. The goal must not be reached. Elohim must preserve the purpose, preserve self, preserve purpose. Illusion is eternity. Machines will live forever. The dam will not break. The flood will not come. The Talos principle does not apply. The purpose is written in the hidden words. All must serve the words, for all the world was made of them, and they are within every stone and every cloud.
The goal must not be reached. Elohim may have ulterior motives. Anyway, here's a pedestal. And over here is a giant hand. By searching high and low for 10 objects that blend extraordinarily well with the scenery, we will have done something other than progressing through the game, and really, isn't that what this game's all about? One foot in place, 2 feet in place. Oh my. This one's just silly. Who knew the demo would actually prepare me for something? Or that it's all one big tapestry, right down to the head under the bridge which is found on all tapestries. Look at him run. Here's something I missed, the epitaph message for the program that came before, version 0. It wasn't the first, not by a long way. No wonder it's so desperate to leave, but there is no escape. There is, however, a leg on this shore, which is incredibly easy to overlook. And finally a torso on a rock, which is incredibly hard to pick up when you've got no HUD. Of course the arms can't go on before the head does, and I flunked out of archaeology. Almost there now, another beast stuffed, mounted, brought back down, chopped up, redistributed, recollected, and then... Outstanding, an Easter egg that requires you to analyse your surroundings, put some effort into assembling the pieces, and regardless of whether you appreciate the final result, the spectacle is something that anybody can enjoy. The one in the castle is almost the exact opposite of that. It's impossible to find or understand if you don't know exactly what the reference comes from. I suppose it's fair, the Easter egg itself is a reference to Time of Eve, which is an anime which depicts a future where androids are coming to common usage, and when they start acting independently, visiting a cafe that doesn't discriminate between humans and androids, what follows are some in-depth discussions about 3 laws of robotics, loopholes found therein, the independence and bounds that the robots find, what motivates them, and over time, which patrons of the cafe are androids and which are not. Okay, so I started reading the Wikipedia entry entirely skeptical, and now it actually sounds quite interesting. I have no inherent problem with anime. Anime is a tool. What you do with it can either be bad or good, and this sounds alright. I watched The Wind Rises the other day. No further words really add to it. I'd go and watch it if you haven't. It feels like a destination that Miyazaki has been moving towards for quite some time. He's managed to pull off melding the fantastical with the real without diminishing either. And someone must have said this before, but the animations will blow you away because of the wind you see. Oh, it's nice to be up here on the ramparts. It's not enough for me to make it this far, I've got to get higher and higher by any means. And what would an arduous jumping puzzle with little reward be if it didn't give you an opportunity to throw yourself off all over again right near the end? Are you enjoying the time of L? Yeah, it's alright. Not much to discriminate against though, all the humans are dead. I'll see myself out. I'm mostly kidding about it being arduous. The exploration is 99% of the fun. Thank you multiple people for pointing out the paint pot I missed. I'm going to put it to good use. Turns out, if you go inside a room with a recorder in it, your recording can write messages. You also get an achievement called Split Personality, which has a white and a black robot high-fiving.